Go, go, Boomerang! What happened?
Bother me tomorrow, the day I'll buy no sorrows. Looking out my back door.
Okay, so a select few of you guys might remember seeing this vaguely on the channel. Didn't quite work out, for the main reason being that at the time, I could never get the OSD on this to work right. A GPS enabled drone is just no fun without a proper working OSD. So I just parked it and put it away. Well, now that INAV is out, I'm really curious to see what I can do with this. Now, the only real limiting thing on this frame is the fact that it's an old Simon K 4-in-1 ESC. The Omnibus F3 has the built-in OSD, and from what I've seen is INAV works with the built-in OSD feature just like Betaflight 1.72, I think. What's that, big kitty? I like that cat. Another thing I remember hating about working on this frame, to take the top plate off, you have to take off all of these screws. Every single one of these screws has to come off. Alright, old APM out, old receiver out. We are ready for the new flight controller. The only other receiver I have at the moment is one I apparently did not bring to the table. Alright. It's Banggood receiver, it works with Far Sky, does S-Bus. Very simple, very small, no telemetry, diversity antennas. But it will send RSSI through a channel, so you can get telemetry in your OSD. So this is cool, and this will work. It's super freaking light. Now, I've pushed 200 milliwatt transmitters out a half a mile with pretty darn clear reception. What a helical antenna. So this is cool and will work. It's brand new. All right, I got all the pin headers on the Omnibus. Was more of a pain in the butt than I remember it being, but I'm glad I did it because I'm not exactly sure what all I'm going to put on this quad, so it might come in handy. But I know there's a lot more headers on here that I'm going to use. All right, we're back. It's 2 days later. The build is almost done. Most of the configuration's all been complete. Pretty much just got to put it back together and give it a maiden flight. So now I'm tearing it back apart after I built it, make sure everything was hooked up right, and I'm applying this acrylic sealer. This is experimental for me, but there's three things that are kind of a caveat when you're trying to water coat homebrewed drones like this. First being the cameras, you break them down, and I put a little piece of tape over the sensor, and then I spray it. I pull the tape off, and if any of the acrylic residue got on the sensor, then I'll use fingernail polish to remove it. It's real quick and simple. And then the second would be the barometer, which I'm actually about to do here on camera for you guys. So I've got it covered with a tiny little piece of tape, and then I'm going to hold down on the tape to make sure nothing gets in that hole, because I don't fully trust that Scotch tape. And the third caveat being having as many connectors plugged in as possible, and that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and finish off that barometer. Now, this stuff dries pretty darn quick. After about 5 minutes, you can handle the components, but I would still give it probably 12 hours before powering this thing up. Make sure you spray it from multiple angles so the acrylic can push its way under the processor pins and any other lifted components that have space underneath them. But don't go too crazy, because if you push this stuff under the tape and get it in the barometer, chances are you won't have a working barometer. I forgot to plug in this header and receiver pin before I sprayed the board. Not a big deal, because it'd be pretty easy to scrape any sealer off these pins if I have a connection issue. But things like the USB port, you don't want to forget that. I know this is a really iffy thing, but if it's gonna fail, at least I can be a guinea pig for you guys. Alright, the hole looks open, and hopefully none of the acrylic got in the barometer. Worst case scenario, I have an extra U-dart, so I could buy a separate barometer, or I could just replace the board. The board's only like 20 bucks, and just put this board into a different build but I think we're gonna be okay. Well, that could have gone worse. So, time to go tune some PIDs. So you new pilots don't know about this, and us older pilots have mostly forgotten about it. But there was a time back a couple years ago building these quads when what you just saw was the norm. It was actually quite rare to get any stable flight whatsoever on a maiden, especially on the larger quads. Now you just, you load Betaflight on a mini quad and it flies damn near perfect. Damn. I thought perhaps lowering the PIDs quite significantly would make a difference. Didn't appear to make a difference. Cat totally sticking his tongue out at me. You weird kitty. It's the next day. The kitchen table is wrecked, but it flies. And it was the ESC. On older software, as I mentioned before, the Simon K ESCs were great. The performance was good. They were very controllable, but I think with just the way modern flight controllers are, they really want motor braking. And the Simon K, as far as I know, simply didn't do motor braking.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. You're not a Jedi yet.
Wide out here in the open though, I should be getting more than 6 satellites. However, this is an older GPS module. I don't think it uses the Russian satellites, so it's just ours. But even though I still remember using this with the APM, and when I used this same module with the APM, I would often get like 8 satellites. I want to fly way out there, and I should get about 7 to 8 minutes on a 1500 4-cell. It's not very much. The battery's too small for this build, but before I go spend money on bigger batteries, I want to make sure it's going to work right. 8 satellites, good deal. Alright, let's go for a flight. He's probably got some vibrations in those props. Those are old props. Caught my damn cat chewing on them the other night too. Yeah, there's a mist. You can't really see it in the camera. Well, actually, yeah, you can if you look at the trees. There's a mist just above us, and unfortunately, that's clouding the FPV camera. All right, let's fly around and loiter a bit, see how she does. Not gonna be able to see much through the DVR.
20 seconds.
This first battery, I'm not gonna go very far because I don't know how reliable it is yet. This is the first real test flight of INAV for me. I mean, yeah, I loitered in the front yard a few times, but that was it, and it was real iffy at the time because of all the interference. Alright, let go of the sticks and see if it holds its position.
9.
See, look at that.
8.
It's freaking out.
7.
That was like a mad fishbowl right there.
5.
I might try recalibrating the compass.
Timer will elapse.
The timer on this it's set for a mini quad. Let's try return to home. I can remember what switch that's on. There we go. Seems to be doing it. Huh. It actually it turned itself facing the same direction it was when it took off. So it flew forward here, and then it turned around, and now it looks like it's coming into land nicely. Whoa! Whoa! Disarm!
Zero. B.
What the was that? Did you see that? Damn prop flew off. These are auto-tightening props. How did it do that? Maybe I need to turn off ESC. No, ESC braking wouldn't have that much of an effect. What the hell? Maybe it was a desync. I don't know. That was crazy. I'm glad it did it right there and not way the hell up there. FPV antenna popped off a little bit, but I think it's okay. These are old motors, but they've never been in a crash. These are new Racer Star 30 amp ESCs, so they have plenty of power, but maybe these ESCs just don't like spinning these slow motors. These are 920 kV 2212 motors, and you know, these Racer Star ESCs are, I assume, designed for mini quads spinning much faster, smaller motors. Not that it's a power issue, just a timing issue. So I'm going to tighten these up real nice. I'm not going to deal with switching timing or anything like that until I figure out for sure that's the problem. Or when that prop gave, you notice how it just kind of drops straight down? Whoa! A good testament on how fast this flight controller shut off them other motors so it didn't flip. It kind of hit the ground, and Return to Home didn't know what to do when it hit the ground. And because this is a brand new build with a lot of flight modes, I freaking couldn't find the disarm switch right away. But that's why we're out here in the middle of nowhere, so we're safe with stuff like this. And now I'm definitely sure I know where the arm switch is. All right, let's just make sure this prop's not gonna fly off real quick. Nice and stable. Actually, let's test some altitude hold real quick. Okay, this is the altitude hold. Let's see how well it does. And not great. Not too great. Let's get a little bit higher. The barometer on this Omnibus F3 is tiny. I mean, really tiny, so it just leads me to believe it's a real basic barometer, probably not high resolution. Also, there's a possibility I got some waterproofing in it when I was waterproofing the flight controller. I think I got it all out, but, oops, poured the DVR. But I noticed that if I go real hard on the sticks, it doesn't quite know what to do all the time. Yeah, it's just sinking a little bit. Coming back. I wouldn't be worried. I think the altitude hold on it would probably be fine if I'm 50 feet in the air. I haven't seen it do anything sporadic. Alright, well, let's see if we can get it out there and then hit some return to home. Or position hold and altitude hold. My altitude on the FPV screen shows 35 feet, give or take. It appears to be holding pretty well. But flying out there real smooth. Still at 34, 33 feet. See, from here it looks like I'm already at the trees, but I'm not even close. Wow, I can't even tell where I am. On the FPV screen, it's so foggy too. I'm just gonna stay on this little path. Okay, looks like we're at the trees now. And I'm gonna climb because for a second I wasn't sure what was going on. Oh, I can't see anything. Okay, here's hoping the return to home works. Let's climb before we hit some return to home. Nope, that wasn't return to home. I forgot what return to home was. That's not good. Position hold appears to be freaking out. There it is. Okay, I found return to home. This is trial by fire because the FPV screen is so fogged that I don't know where it is. I hope it comes back. Oh God, it's moving. The battery's getting low too. It's a small battery. I can hear it. If you ever have a hard time hearing your quad, when you're looking for a beeper or trying to figure out where it is in the sky, do this. It really does help. Yeah, I can hear it. It's getting closer. I can't see it. Oh, there it is. Wow, it's way up there. Battery's 14.2 volts. I think that's fine. 4 cells, I always have a problem remembering where the low is on a 4 cell. I know that that's low. It starts to hit 13.9, I think, is when you really want to be landing, which is what it appears to be doing. Let's just hope a prop doesn't come off while it's 200 feet in the air. It's doing its little turn now. It turned back up in the proper direction from takeoff. Come on, baby, you can do it. 13.6 volts. Yeah, we gotta land. Come on. Oh no. Oh no. That's broken. Oh God. Well, that's no bueno. Did I just say no bueno? Yeah, that is broken, ladies and gentlemen. Oh well, them old fiberglass frames, that's why I use this one first. Hope my battery's okay. GPS still blinking. Why did it cut out like that? Let me look at the FPV feed. Alright, what we have here is a Bonsai wing from Hobby King that I do not condone buying because no matter which warehouse you buy it from, the shipping charge is almost as much as the wing. But if you happen to have one or you just really want to get one, these are great wings. Incredibly durable, easy to fly. It will fly fast and it will fly very slow, which is perfect for me because I kind of like things that fly slow. They just float around. My eyesight kind of sucks, so once it gets far away, I can't tell what it's doing. Anyways, I just bought this to use with my spare drone parts because when you build mini quads, you have inevitably old motors, old ESCs you don't use anymore, but they're still good. I really wanted to do an INAV wing. Freaking the flight controllers and everything's so small now that I do one. Now let me show you this 6-inch prop on a little 1806 DYS motor. Under this little door here is a power distribution board. I don't think I glued it, it's just press fitted in. Here we go. Alright, so we got our power distribution board, a little JST connector, everything's all wired up into here to make it nice, as clean as possible. This is a tiny, tiny little receiver that works with the FR Sky Tranix and the QX7. Alright, and then we got our 12 amp ESC, which I think is a 12 amp. Might be 16, but I'm pretty sure it's 12. These are just some cheap Amazon 9 grand servos. They're plastic gear, analog, nothing special. We got a little telemetry module up here. That's a 3DR radio from our old APM days. Now it kind of works with INAV, whereas you can connect and change PIDs and stuff, but as far as getting it to send telemetry and GPS back, I'm having a really hard time getting that to work. I probably just don't know what I'm doing, or it's not a feature they support yet, but INAV's promised in the future to have telemetry and waypoint support for 3D radios or telemetry radios, so I figure I might as well put it on there and see how it works out. That's a small little M6N GPS module. It's an older one, came out about the same time as that one, so I'm looking to only get about 8 satellites at most. It's an Omnibus F3 under there. It has the built-in barometer, has an SD card slot, which we're not using, and that's pretty much it. Now, this is just an experimental build. If this works out real nice, then I'm going to rebuild one of these, probably bigger and cleaner. There is actually room in here. I had to trim it out just a little bit, but there is room in there to fit the flight controller in and make this a much cleaner build, but that would be something I would do only if I was committed to the build actually working. So we don't know if it's going to work or not, so I'm going to fly it. I'm going to try and take off in pass-through mode. I added a little bit of a heavier battery because the original Bonsai had a small battery to keep the CG nice, but because there's more stuff on the back, I figured a bigger battery. This is 1000 milliamp, and if I need a bigger one, then we'll go bigger. I'm hoping it needs a bigger one, to be honest. It'll fly faster, but it means that it'll fly longer. We're rocking 10 satellites on that tiny GPS. Hell yeah. One of the biggest headaches about setting a GPS up on a multi-rotor is the compass. Calibrating the compass, pointing it in the right direction, hoping that, you know, it stays configured and doesn't freak out. Make sure you get the right voltage to the compass, lifting it way the hell above all the electronics on the quad, and not to mention the fact that when you go dramatic distances from your home, you have to calibrate it. Wings do not use a compass. You can, but they don't need it. This has no compass on it. And a lot of the pilots say they fly better without a compass because they don't get that bad information on occasions. So it's literally just stick the GPS up on there. This is in altitude and position hold. It's making a circle. It appears to be holding its altitude. It's a really wide circle, but I'll explain why in a moment. To get altitude hold and position hold to work, it has to be in angle mode, which is, you know, it's auto level mode. It will not work in pass-through mode. Now, because of how low the turn rate is in angle mode, it's way out there right now. Because of how low the turn rate is, it's making a really wide loiter circle. Now I just put it into return to launch. Now, although position hold and altitude hold, it has to be in angle mode for those to work, apparently. Return to home, it doesn't care. It's loitering absolutely perfect. It has performed a flawless return to home and is performing a perfect loiter. And it seems that in return to home, it's making a shorter circle. When it was in loiter, it was definitely making a much wider circle. That's great. I'm getting a lot more trusting of the angle mode. The preset was for the 600mm wing. Now I have it in angle mode, and you can see I'm not even touching the throttle, and it's managing its own stall characteristics. And I'm losing a little bit of altitude, but I'm not stalling where normally my bad piloting would be stalling. And I'm just holding the right stick. It's pretty sweet. Now I would like the angle, the turn radius to be a little shorter. It's very forgiving as long as you can stay away from the trees. So that's cool. This is the first time I've ever tried to do anything with a flight controller on a fixed wing model, let alone GPS, telemetry, fail safes, loitering, return home, all that crap. I've got 10 satellites. I double checked to make sure failsafe was set to return to home. I'm gonna take it out there. I'm gonna turn off the controller and pray to God that it comes and starts loitering over our head and I can get a signal again. All right, guys, here we go. Controller's off. It's doing something. Controller is off. That's my baby right there. First fail-safe test just for you guys. Now let's see if I can reconnect and bring her home before that crap battery takes a complete dump. All right, now the problem with rearming a QX7 is throttle and switches. But a trick, when it gives you the warning that your switches are up and your throttle is up, just ignore it and just keep pushing the enter button. Theoretically, I've never tested this, but we're going to find out. When it reconnects, it should reconnect where the switches are and where your throttle is. Whereas normally that'd be a bad thing.
The force is with you, young
Right now, that's what we want. All right, skipping the throttle warning.
Switch warning.
Skipping the switch warning. So let's see if I can take it out of, oh no, hold on, I'm at the SD card warning. Stupid SD card. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna wait till I get out of the sun. Okay, all right, radio's on. It didn't twitch, it didn't do anything crazy. See if I can take it out of return to launch. And I have control, I have complete control. Awesome. That's probably the best one I've done all day. I need to do some more testing. I'm gonna take this ESC, because I've got plenty of extras, and I'm gonna submerge it in water and then see if the motor does anything funky. These big components, you gotta make sure you spray at an angle so you get underneath them as well. I might not have done that because I already mounted the ESC when I went to spray it. So it was kind of a funky angle, but there we go, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this cool little thing. I know this vlog started out with me focused on that drone, and had I known completely what I was doing, maybe it still would be, but I didn't crash this at all. All the flight modes work perfect. INAV 1.7 default configurations for the 600mm wing on a Bonsai with drone parts. And although, I mean, it's not the cleanest build in the world, the bottom's kept most of its aerodynamics. The top, considering everything that's on here, GPS, telemetry, flight controller, is still got most of its wing unaffected by drag. And honestly, I would have put the flight controller in this compartment had I known everything was going to work as well as it did. But I assumed, naturally with all of my builds, that I would be repairing it, and this was just a lot easier to work on. Guys, I completely forgot I bought a boomerang the other day. This was $5 at Walmart. You should probably read the instructions. How to throw a boomerang. Yeah, I'm supposed to throw it at a 10-degree angle. Yeah, sure. I build drones, I know angles. This should be cool. It's broken! I can build and fly a $300 drone, but I can't throw a $5 boomerang! Oh, I lost it. Oh, that is gone.